Good day, everybody. Well, today is going to be a different video from the usual style because for once I actually have a friend and colleague here who's Patrick Henningsen, a very old friend. He's with me here in Hungary. We have been meeting all kinds of officials, ministers, state secretaries, journalists, all kinds of people here in Hungary. And well, the first thing to say is, Patrick, welcome to this channel. Your very first guest I've ever had on this channel.
It's a great honor. Thank you.
First impressions of Hungary, about the country, the people, perhaps what your thoughts about it.
It's someplace I've always wanted to visit, but never had managed to get around to it. And I'm thoroughly impressed with a lot of things. The city, the architecture, the culture, the life. It's a stunning city. By European standards, one of the best I've ever visited, and the politics are fascinating. So many issues are coming together now, with Hungary at the fulcrum of those issues: the European Union, the war in Ukraine, the economy, the realignment, the flow eastward of influence and political influence in BRICS and so forth. Hungary seems to be, as well as all the conservative social issues and immigration as well. Hungary is right at the forefront. So this is a fascinating place to be. So I'm here to listen, learn, observe, and hopefully come away with some really powerful takeaways.
I'm going to focus on what we've been hearing about the war, because one of the most interesting and extraordinary things about our visit for me is that in every single meeting, the war has come up and has been a central topic of discussion. And the Hungarians themselves are bringing it up all the time. So we've talked to people from the energy ministry, the finance ministry, people from the economics ministry, people who are not necessarily directly involved in foreign policy formation. And yet, nonetheless, they are all concerned about the war. And I don't know whether you share my view, but one of the things that that's come across to me is that the Hungarians at a fundamental level are utterly baffled by the policy decisions we have been making in the West. They know the region, they know Ukraine, which is a bordering country, they know the Russians very well, they've had wars with the Russians in the past. They cannot understand why we in Europe, in the West, would be doing this, why we would provoke a war with the Russians, disregard Russian red lines, insist on absolutist positions over NATO, which were likely to lead to the kind of conflict that we have now, and take steps which several Hungarian officials have described as economically suicidal. I mean, was that your impression as well? I mean, it's absolute bewilderment. They just don't understand how briefly we could be so stupid.
I see a clear consensus across multiple ministries that the policy of escalation with no exit strategy, it seems, other than more escalation, is quote crazy. And the sanctions clearly, as far as people here believe, they haven't worked. So this hasn't worked, and the policy of escalation is not working. It seems to me, at least from the foreign ministry side, they want a ceasefire first and then get into negotiations. And that's a common sense position. It's always been a common sense position for time immemorial. The question is, why is that ruled out now? What is going on in the minds of Western leaders? Is this I always call this a vanity project for a declining Western Europe and a US-led hegemony. And Ukraine is the ultimate vanity project. And egos are invested, political careers are fully invested in this. And it's a death spiral for the West. They cannot manage to pull themselves out. Only in a place in Central Europe, you see Slovakia, Hungary, where they're more pragmatic, they're more realist in their approach, because they can't afford not to be.
You know, you use the word realistic. And again, one of the things that really struck me was that official after official was bringing up that word, being realistic, realism. Something that we never hear in the West anymore. when people talk about realism in foreign policy, at least at the government level, it provokes concern. It's somehow seen as a betrayal of the policies we should be following. We should be following idealistic, utopian, grander geopolitical
Yeah.
ones. And this is something that sets Hungary ultimately apart from the predominant politics of the West, at least as pursued by the major governments of the West. Was that your impression as well?
It is, and also, these countries, the Eastern European countries and former Warsaw Pact areas, they're coming out of communism. They're rebuilding their government, rebuilding their state, all the departments, all their structures. So they have to be more pragmatic. The West is operating on a post-World War II liberal internationalist multilateral operating system that was supposed to work during a Cold War binary period that prevented war from breaking out.
Yeah.
So the system that they have, which is completely dysfunctional right now, they've ruined it. They're wrecking it. They're in the process, the West is in the process of wrecking that which was built after the Second World War for the express purposes of preventing war and genocide and things like that. And here you have them doing everything possible to undermine that. So a country like Hungary or Slovakia or some of these other countries, and then more will emerge, I hope. More European countries, and the small states seem to be the ones that are the first to give that clarion call for sanity, and not the big states. But hopefully, at least Hungary could create a bandwagon effect that could lead to hopefully to a resolution.
Absolutely. Can I also quickly add to those who find this difficult to understand that in this part of Europe, this is not a classical right-left issue. Hungary has a conservative right-wing government. Slovakia has an old-fashioned left-wing socialist government or social democrat government. But on this issue, they see eye to eye. And of course, Fico and Orban, who come from completely distinct political traditions, are political allies and friends. And specifically on this issue, they disagree. Now, Patrick, there was something else that really struck me from the discussions that we had over the last couple of days. And I'm not going to say who it was, but it was one of the very, very senior officials, one of the most senior officials. And we were talking about the war at great length. And we were discussing some of the motivations behind it. And then he said something which I did find very revealing. And this was unprompted from us. He said that there is a view, and he seemed to have that view. This war isn't about Ukraine. It isn't about defending Ukrainian sovereignty or all of those things. It is about Russia, about removing Russia from the scene, about doing something that will reassert Western global dominance. Now, this was said to us by a very senior official of the Hungarian government. And again, I was astonished that he would speak in quite such a forthright way and make a comment like that. It's the sort of thing that all of us are saying, on independent media. But it turns out that there are officials in at least one European government, which is also a NATO government, which share those views.
Yeah. So I mean, the NATO interpretation here is clearly different.
Yeah.
So Orban said this week that NATO, and we heard it reiterated from other ministers, that NATO should be an organization for peace, to preserve peace, not to create war. So that's a real divergence of the way when you hear ministers in Britain saying if one tow cap lands in Poland, it's going to trigger Article 5. I don't want to mention any names, but let's say the former foreign secretary, or something like this. So this isn't the language you see here. Isn't it funny, Alex, how the closer you get to the conflict zone, the more muted the hawkish stances are, but the further away you get, the more strident the political rhetoric is. Isn't that interesting?
Absolutely. Well, Patrick Henningsen, it has been an honor and a privilege to have you on a program here on this channel. Maybe we'll do this again.
Hopefully, yes.
This is where I'm going to finish today's program. It's a windy, blustery day here in beautiful Budapest. I'll be back very soon doing programs again as normal. All that remains is for me to wish you a very good day.